Hi everyone, welcome to Nonsense Whisky. My name's PF, and on today's episode we've got another Sample Saturday for you. Now if you've been watching the channel, you might have seen a review I did a few months ago of a Glengarry from 1965. That sample came from a great little company called Cheaper by the Dram, and they sent that out as kind of a press pack, and he got in touch with me, Mark got in touch with me recently to say if I wanted another Dram from them to bring to you guys. Sure, why not? Let's go for it. He selected the Dram and he sent me out this, which is their number 14. This one is still available. The Glengarry 1965 was a kind of press pack only thing, so unfortunately you guys couldn't get hold of that. This one is available. A little bit about Cheaper by the Dram. Basically, the idea behind this is to get bottles that are completely unattainable for the regular drinker, like people like me and probably most of you watching this. These kind of expensive, like £300 plus. This bottle would have been £300 for a full size. To break that down into wee size drams so that they're relatively affordable for us. For instance, this dram would be about £22 on their website for a 30 milliliter sample size. Very expensive, yes, for a single whiskey, but what you're getting for that price is an iconic whiskey or something that you won't be able to try anywhere else, or a snapshot into a different time frame, which is what we're going to be looking at today. Let's have a look at the packet before we get into the dram, and we can talk about the whiskey we've got in the jar today. So this is the number 14. 46% is what we've got on the front here. Really, you've got no information on the outside unless you already know. You get a little wee card with it here like this. Cheaper by the Dram. With all the information you could want on there. That's not going to focus, so I'll read this out to you instead. And you get this wee little sample in there as well. All nice and recyclable. Love that. So here today we have a first cask, which is a Direct Wines brand. I'd never heard of them before. And this is an 18-year-old Highland Park that's been independently bottled, single cask, sherry butt. And this is cask number 11848, if you're interested in those sorts of things. And this was distilled in 1989 and bottled in 2007. Very interesting to me because I used to be a big fan of Highland Park. Unfortunately, they've kind of priced me out of their stuff recently. I mean, apart from their really entry-level stuff, and that's not really very interesting to me. They're well known for mixing sherry casks and ex-bourbon casks together. This is a single cask from the sherry butt with the Highland Park distillate from 1989. The best thing about this is that it's likely that I've tried some of their liquids distilled in the 80s, because I've tried Highland Park 18, 21 and 25. That's the highest I've been with Highland Park so far. And I tried all of them in the last decade. So it's likely, especially for the 21 and the 25, that those were distilled in the late 80s, like this was. Those were whiskies that I have greatly enjoyed and covet now. I've still got a wee drop of the 21 that I save for really special occasions, because all of the new releases of Highland Park, even the new style 12 and 18s and things like that, don't seem to cut the mustard for me anymore. But these old school bottles, the 21 downstairs, is just superb and remains to be one of the best whiskies I've ever drank. Let's get into this and see what we've got in the glass and see if it's worth that sort of money. On the nose then. Oh, now, obviously I'm going to nerd out about this dram. I'll say that up front. This is Highland Park at, dare I say, its best, but just absolutely astounding. It's full of that fragrant, heathery peat. Now, the peat that Highland Park do is from a heather peat bog, but it's really light and subdued and fragrant. So when you're talking about peat, it's not in that kind of like smoky, earthy kind of peat that you might be used to from Islay. It's a much lighter, kind of odd peat that you probably smell, and if you don't know what the smell you're smelling is, you probably scratch your head going, I don't know what I'm getting there. It's this heather that you're probably smelling. On top of that, there's a really high amount of kind of dried fruits, dare I say, things like Christmas cake, that sort of thing. The influence of that sherry butt, for sure. Let's get onto the palate. Huge amount of spice on the tongue. But the first thing that happens is this kind of sweet, thick, viscous liquid. You know, it's a 46%er, natural coloured, non-chill filtered, I should imagine, at 46%. It's just really like, thick is the only word I can use to describe it. I covered some stuff recently on the channel that's 40%, and I always say things like it tastes watery and thin. This 46% upwards, when you don't chill filters, where you start getting this really nice viscous mouthfeel that I really appreciate. But it's got this huge spiciness to it. Dare I say aniseedy almost, but more of that stuff from the nose coming through, and that's the kind of heathery peat and those dried fruits, that kind of Christmas cakey vibe that we were talking about earlier. In terms of a finish, long and fruity, spicy, warming, just everything that I wish I could get from a whiskey now. Now, I have to say, the beauty of this service is the fact that you can try a dram like this for anywhere near a decent price. As I said at the top of the show, the bottle, a full-size bottle of this, would have been about £300 on the secondary market when it first came out. I dread to think how much it cost. Probably next to nothing, probably about 50 quid. But they've bottled this down to make it more affordable to us, £22. You can try something that was distilled in the 80s. You can try something that you typically won't be able to get your hands on very easily anymore. And I think that's the value of the service. That's where it's really worth that sort of money. There are drams on their website that I absolutely would definitely not be able to afford to spend it on. Good example is they've got an Octomore 1.1, I think is still in stock, and that's about £45. I would love to try that, but I can't really justify the expense right now, but you might be able to. I know there's a couple of people, Matt's Whiskey and Cigars, he bought a dram of that and he's reviewed that, so go and check that out if you want to see something like that. But I genuinely think this is a great service. They're really doing something to open up people like me who want to try these expensive whiskies that everyone that I know talks about that I've never been able to try. And it's a service like this that we really need to be able to try something like that. So I can't point you in the direction of the whiskey in terms of a full bottle and who made it, because that's long gone. But you can try this dram still if you go and check out Cheaper by the Dram, and I definitely recommend you do.